We're going to start working on solving equations. This video is part one of several days of working through different levels of complexity of solving equations. Okay, so the thing to keep in mind when you're solving an equation is it is an equation, which means equals. It's going to have to stay in balance. Whatever you've got has got to be in balance. So if you perform something on one side of the equal sign, you have to do the exact same thing on the other side. Think of it as a big scale. The other really cool thing about equations is that you can always check your answer. So once you come up with an answer, go back and substitute that answer in and see if you did it right. If it makes the equation true, you're golden. You've done it right. You can move on. So what we're going to do here at the very beginning of these notes is just practice. How do you plug in and check an answer? So if you look, we have, for number one, we've been given an equation, 3x equals 12 with x equaling 4. What I want to do is go back and check and see if that's true. So instead of my x, I'm going to go ahead and substitute in for x the 4. And see if that equals 12. Well, 3 times 4 is 12. 12 equals 12. So yes, I got my equation true. So on number 2, we've been given x is 7. So we're going to substitute in, instead of x, we're going to substitute in 7 minus 3 equals 10. Well, 7 minus 3 actually equals 4. 4 does not equal 10, so no, it's not true. Your ultimate goal when solving an equation is to get your variable all by itself on the left side of the equation. Once it's all by itself, you have to make sure that it has a coefficient of positive 1. In other words, it's just a plain old positive x or a positive y, or whatever the variable is. That's your ultimate goal. Now I've listed down here the 6 steps that we take every time. You don't have to go, oh no, I've got 6 steps to memorize. The more you practice this process, they'll become inherent to you. But I've given them to you, so until you're really good at it, you can go back and say, have I done each step? And what am I supposed to do next? Okay, so let's just start out, and we're going to start practicing how to solve an equation. I know you guys did this last year, so this is not brand new stuff. First thing I'm going to do is make this a little bit bigger so we have room to work on number 3. Okay, so number 3, 4y minus 9 equals 15. So I'm solving, the variable I'm solving for is the y. So that's what I'm solving for. So I always circle the variable I'm solving for. That just tells me this is what I'm trying to get by myself. The next thing I always do, and that's also not in your steps, is I draw a line. That helps me remember this is an equation. Whatever I do on one side of the line, I have to do on the other side of the line. Okay, so when we look at our steps, we need to look and see if either of the sides needs simplifying, which they don't. Then we need to move any other variables, if they're on the right side, over to the left, which they're already there. So now our next step is to add or subtract away the term with no variable. So since our goal is to get this y term all by itself, we're going to do the inverse operation. Inverse operation means we're just going to do the opposite operation of what we've got. So the operation that we have right here is minus 9. What is the opposite of minus or subtraction? Well, the opposite of subtraction is addition. So what we're going to do is say plus 9. Now remember, this is a scale. Whatever we've done to one side, we have to do the exact same to the other side. So we have plus 9. Now notice I'm putting the 9 under the 15. I'm allowed to do that because they're like terms. They will be able to be combined, so I'm putting it underneath it. Okay, so now let's just see what we've got. Our 9's cancel out. That leaves us with 4y equals 24. Okay, so we've gotten through step 3. Now we have to go to step 4, which is divide or multiply by the coefficient of our variable. Coefficient, remember that word we learned in class? Coefficient is the number beside the variable. We're going to have to do the opposite operation, or the inverse operation. Right now we have 4 multiplied by y. So when it's beside it like this, we're going to divide. So we're dividing by our coefficient. So I'm going to just draw my division line. Make this like a fraction. Don't put the division sign. Make it look like a fraction. So I'm going to put my divided by 4 on this side, divided by 4 on that side. Okay, so where that leaves us is my two 4's cancel out, leaving me with y equals 24 divided by 4 is 6. So I've gotten through step 5. Everything's been reduced. Now, step 6 is to actually check my answer. So we're going to pull this in just a little bit, because number 4 on it is check our solution. So I'm just going to give me some extra space right here. Okay, so I've said that y equals 6. So let's plug it in and see. We have 4. And instead of y, we're going to plug in what we found, which is 6 minus 9 equals 15. So 4 times 6 is 24 minus 9 equals 15. Well, 24 minus 9 is 15 equals 15. So we have now checked our solution. We know for sure that we've done this correctly. Okay, so let's do this again for number 5. I'll give myself a little more room on number 5. Okay, so the first thing we do is we know that we're solving for x. So I'm going to go ahead and just circle my x. So I know this is the term that I have to get all by itself. And I'm going to draw my line because this is an equation. I have to keep things equal on both sides of the line. Okay, so if I'm trying to get my negative 6x alone, I'm going to have to get rid of the other term. I'm going to have to get rid of that 7. Right now I'm adding 7. So the inverse operation of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 7. If I do it on one side of the line, I must do it on the other side of the line. 7 is a like term to 5, so I'm okay putting it right under it. Now I'm going to just draw my line. My two 7's cancel out. Plus 7 minus 7 is 0. So that leaves me negative 6x equals negative 5 plus negative 7 is negative 12. Okay, so now I look, everything is still simplified on both sides. So I've got to get rid of my coefficient, because remember, my ultimate goal is to get positive x all by itself. So whatever is beside it, I'm going to have to divide it. Well, what is beside my x is a negative 6. So I'm going to have to divide out my coefficient, or my negative 6. Again, make it a fraction. So just draw your fraction line and put negative 6 underneath both sides. Negative 6 divided by negative 6 equals 1. Remember how we talked about 1 is a coefficient of x? So that just leaves us with x equals negative 12 divided by negative 6 is positive 2. A negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, so now we're going to check our answer. So let's just move this over a little bit, give us some room to check our answer. Right there. Okay, so we have negative 6, and instead of our x, I'm going to plug in the 2 that we just figured out. So negative 6x plus 7 equals negative 5. let's see. Negative 6 times 2 is negative 12, plus 7 equals negative 5. When I have a negative and a positive, I subtract. So 12 minus 7 is 5, and I keep the sign of my bigger number. So negative 5 equals negative 5. So that's true. I've now checked my work. Okay, I would like you to do number 7 and number 8 on your own. So pause the video and do number 7 and 8 on your own, and then come back and check and see if you've gotten it correct. The biggest thing to notice on number 10 as you're checking it is I got down to a negative y. Negative y is really the coefficient of negative 1y, so I rewrote it so you could see the division of the negative 1. Okay, let's look at number 11, and then you can do number 12 on your own. Okay, number 11, I'm solving for t. So I'm going to draw my line. Got to get rid of the other term that's with a t, which is adding 6. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 6 from both sides. And that leaves me with 1/2 t equals negative 13. Okay, you got a couple of choices here. Normally what I do on this is I just divide it by the coefficient, meaning I divide everything by 1/2. Now, in order to do this, you're going to need your calculator to put in 1/2 divided by parentheses 1/2, or negative 13 divided by parentheses 1/2. And when you do that, the 1/2s cancel out, and you have t equals negative 26. Now, if you don't want to use your calculator, just think of the inverse of 1/2. If you have a fraction and you're wanting to get rid of it, the other option would be to say, I have 1/2 t equals negative 13. I just have to flip my fraction around. So I'm going to go 2 over 1. All I did was flip my fraction upside down, and I'm going to do that on both sides. So basically, on both sides, I'm now multiplying by the opposite of my fraction. And my 2, this all cancels out, leaving me with t, equals negative 13, really is a fraction all on its own. So I'm going to multiply the numerators. Negative 13 times 2 is negative 26. And on the bottom, I have 1 times 1, which is 1. So either way, you can either flip the fraction upside down and multiply both sides by it, or if you've got your calculator, you can divide as long as you put your fraction in parentheses. Okay, so now do number 12 on your own. Okay, I went ahead and did number 12 using either the calculator, dividing by the negative 1/3, or just using the inverse of the fraction, flipping it upside down and multiplying. Either way, my answer is x equals 30. And then you can see where I've checked my answer and verified that it worked. To apply what you've learned, so go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to have you do 13, 14, and 15 on your own. I want you to give it a shot of plugging in on 13, plugging in the y that you've already been given, and solving for the x, then checking your answer. On 14, you're going to draw your rectangle. Then you're just going to follow your distribution properties and solve for x. And then on 15, it's really my favorite. You're putting it all together in a situation. So I want you to take a few minutes and do these on your own, then come back and check and see if you've got them correct. Okay, so go check your two answers. On number 13, x is negative 2. On number 14, x is 5/2. And then do number 15. So on number 15, I found out that he worked 8 hours and went and checked it in the equation and verified that that was true.